If a child has had, up until I'd say 8 or 9, issues with loose ligaments, and so their parents, because the pediatrician said PT, that's all. But she's finally been diagnosed with hypermobility. Does hypermobility equal EDS? But it runs in the family as well as Chiari running in the family.
I see patients like that pretty frequently in my practice, and oftentimes send them to genetics, because I think much like you talked about it, that we're getting better to precision medicine, and EDS is a disease class of incredibly different penetrance, meaning how bad the hyperlaxity can be. And I think it's very useful to actually get a genetics test and figure out, is it someone who's somewhere in the spectrum of a hyperlax syndrome that we don't know of, or is it actually in the family of EDS?
First of all, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed today's topics. Thanks again for all of this. It's been great. As a first-time member, I had the opportunity to talk to other patients, and that was extremely rewarding. In our experience, it seems like the more activity we do, the worse our symptoms get. And I don't know if that's just my personal experience, but in regards to like sports and exercise and activity, is there exercise weight training and bearing down can elevate our symptoms? Is there exercise that's safe to do or harmful to do that's detrimental that will cause long-term damage? I mean, it's for sports like head injury, that seems really simple, that a Chiari patient shouldn't be playing football or boxing. But for those that have Syringomyelia, is there exercise that's safe? Don't all talk at once.
Yeah, everybody's staring at me. No, I think in general exercise is a good thing. Just like anything else, it has to be tailored to the individual. And if you're doing something that is making you uncomfortable, you should probably not do that thing and do something else. But in general, staying active is good advice for anybody, including Chiari patients. And as I said, for most of the Chiari patients that I see, I let them play football or box or do whatever they want, as long as they're not symptomatic and getting surgery.
Yeah, one follow-up question would be, is rotation an issue?
Location?
Rotation. Like yoga is a great modality to help control your pain and increase but is rotation, actual like trunk rotation and moving, contraindicated?
Not as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, get it.
Now, I'm just curious, there's an institute for Chiari in Barcelona, Spain that recommends, I believe it's called the Phelan treatment, and they do a surgical treatment that's down at the bottom of the spine instead of the top of the head. And I'm curious if anyone has heard of that before, what you think of that, and if anybody has any opinion, anything to say about that whatsoever. And if you would ever work with, how you were discussing bringing other doctors into the panel. I don't know if Spain's an option to do that or anything like that. I'm just curious what you feel about that. Thank you.
I have some. Go ahead.
It's so hard to say. I don't know enough about it. Everything that we have tried to do over the past couple of days is using something that's evidence-based or something that other people have looked at, we've looked at, and the studies that surgeons do tend to be kind of lousy because they tend to be, we did this and we're looking at that, but that's just the nature of where we're at in determining what to do in our fields. If there is a literature, that's suggestive, and I'm talking about a peer review literature where it not only explains kind of the thought process as to why it would work, which would be in the introduction to discussion, but also describes the type of results they're seeing, the complications, benefits and risks and such, then that would be something to pursue. It's when you approach something that doesn't have those things, when you approach something that makes you pay out of pocket for treatment, those are things I worry about. That's why I'd mentioned stem cells stem cells seem to be a panacea consideration for every ailment. And despite the fact that it's been quite a while that we've been discussing it, there just aren't the trials being done that can really satisfy your questions. If you can get into appropriate studies and find out if these things have impact, I think that's a better thing to do. But I worry about things where they don't have the research, they have personal opinions, and you end up paying sometimes a large amount of money out of pocket because people with long-term pain and long-term issues are the perfect victims. They want to get better. They want to be helped. And unfortunately, some people will take advantage of that.
I have a question. This is something I was talked about many years ago, but I haven't been hearing it. I have not heard it being talked about.
And I just wanted to hear you guys opine on the involvement of substance P in neuroinflammatory pain or in the neuropathic pain process. Is that being looked at still? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental pathway in pain, and there's obviously a large pharma industry that's interested in that particular pathway. Even things like capsaicin chemicals from hot peppers are known to be involved in that pathway. So I think that there's a number of oral agents as well as topical agents that are being investigated. And so it's an area of ongoing work. I promise you, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So people are looking at that.
It was being talked about back in 2001, the first conference that I attended. And lately, I have heard nothing about it. Crickets.
Yeah, it takes about 20 years to get a drug to market, actually. So, and I think that the field is moving in many different directions. So one of the areas of hot topic right now is calcitonin gene-related peptide antagonism for migraines. And there are already several injectable forms in the market right now. So I think that there's going to be more to come.
You're telling the patient to be more patient.
I'm telling our government is really slow, our FDA, with regards to this process. So it's frustrating for all of us.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm scheduled for a right total hip when I get back. My question to you is, I do have a serious above my lumbar laminectomy that I had back in 2015. I am getting extensive tone in my right leg, and before I had my decompression, I was almost paralyzed on the right leg. I'm questioning you if I'm going down the wrong route. If I should, the hip is already bone against bone, so that's not going to change. But what if I should go get an MRI of lumbar to see if it has, would those two correlate together, or am I going down the wrong road, or should I get the MRI on my spine first before I even venture into getting a new hip? You know what I mean?
What surgery are they doing?
Total hip on the right, which was the original side of my paralysis prior to my decompression.
I mean, have they mentioned failed back or something of the sort that you may be dealing with pain related to prior surgeries and scarring and such, as opposed to pain secondary to a syrinx or something of that sort?
And I had a lumbar laminectomy back in 13.
What's your pain now? Is it pain in your groin?
It's in the hip and shooting down the leg and extensor tone occasionally when I walk on the right side.
Yeah, so classically, total hip is for hip pain, and your hip
Right.
joint is very classically felt as groin pain and does not classically run down your leg, and it does not go into your toes.
Right.
So I treated adults prior to coming to Rady. I did adults and children at St. Louis, and sort of hip versus spine is the great conundrum. And you get an MRI of your spine. If you have compression there, you get a selective nerve root block, and if it goes away, then that's the culprit. If it doesn't go away, then it's the hip. So I wouldn't get a hip replacement.
Yeah, I figured I
before
should get
a
an MRI
spine
prior.
MRI.
So again, I figured I should get an MRI prior to even going in to get the hip surgery done. To rule out.
Have they looked at your hips? Have they just got plain x-rays of your hips to see what they look like?
Yeah, it's bone against bone.
Okay. When you're getting in or out of a car, is that leg weak and extraordinarily painful?
Sometimes it goes out underneath me, yeah.
Because that's why I had my hip done. Just
I'll go that one first, and then if that doesn't solve it, I'll go to the other. I'd rather go to hip first and then go to the other one second. Because I've had too many, I've had 4 surgeries after my decompression, so I'd rather go the simpler route if I could. But, is that what you would think? Should I get an MRI in the spine now or wait till see the new hip resolves? That's what I would.
yeah, but an MRI and then to have that information along with the fact that your hip sounds like it's problematic can hopefully lead them down the path of doing the thing that will most directly impact your pain in a positive way.
I have to look again. Any look?
So my question is, I know that it's been shown the metabolizing of folic acid with different issues like spina bifida. As someone who has idiosyncratic Syringomyelia, no Chiari, no tethered cord, and is wanting to start planning for having a baby, is supplementing folic acid something that I should be doing? Is there any kind of genetic risks that I should know about when it comes to planning for having a family?
Well, I think folic acid is extraordinarily important if you're thinking about having a child. That's been well known and is recommended. I'm not aware of any predispositions for disorders of folate metabolism, any genetics that are associated with an idiopathic syrinx. I'm not aware of any. But yes to folic acid.
Just always be supplementing it either way? Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if this question is very stupid. So my daughter like to carry a very big backpack during high school. I weighted it's like 22 pounds. So that for every day. I don't know when she had this Chiari, but my first question is that something that the pressure she had increase worse the situation for her Chiari? And the second thing is like now she like to do like weightlifting. I said no, maybe because I read online. I said they said that you can do that to increase the pressure here. And she said I already have this decompression surgery, so I'm fine now. But my question is, if you keep on doing like the weightlifting, will that make your cerebellum keep on dripping and make the thing worse?
So first of all, carrying
the cost of his was support for creating Bob.
and that she did have a decompression, is that right?
Yes. I think she's doing well. She waits.
But maybe that's the really the arms of her because she then probably goes 350 yet. I can't imagine. So I just worry about that.
about.
So if we're not keep you there, but keep on keeping that.
Well,
They that's still the question.
I do think backpacks are way too heavy and they can be associated with other problems. So anything heavier than a Chromebook is unnecessary these days. I mean, I've got teenagers, I can't carry their backpacks. So there are other musculoskeletal issues, but not Chiari associated. So I think we all agree backpacks are too heavy in this day and age when computers are so light.
I was told that there's nothing to do for the spondylosis. Is like to slow down the fusion, the process. Is there any? We're kind of looking for a second opinion as far as like what can be done to keep my spine from fusing more.
The best, so spondylosis is degenerating, and then the end stage of degenerating is autofusion. The best thing you can do is stay in good shape and live a healthy lifestyle. Nicotine destroys the discs. I tell all the patients, like, yeah, nicotine's bad for a lot of stuff, and you shouldn't smoke because it'll give you lung cancer, but I'm a spine surgeon. I really only care about the discs, and I don't want your discs to die. So no nicotine products and good cardiovascular exercise to increase your cardiac output brings lots of nutrients to the disc, which were, like I said, not a great biomechanical design. And some of it is genetics. Like, there's genes that lead to early disc degeneration, and you can't change those now, but the things you can change are your overall health. That's the best you can do.
Thanks so much. If a child was diagnosed with 30% curvature of the spine, scoliosis due to Chiari 1 and Syringomyelia, and the child wore a full brace, as you had indicated, until the child was 18. Is there a concern now that the child is an adult of the curvature getting worse since the person is no longer braced?
In very general terms, right, in the talk I talked about how averages are not great because you don't care about averages, you only care about the child. On average, a 30-degree curve does not progress in the thoracic spine. So if it's up here, it tends not to progress. The reality is that 30-degree curves in the low back do tend to have surgery at some point in their life, mostly because of aging and spondylosis and a disc that's a little crooked that then degenerates a little bit, slips and slides, and you will be more likely to get leg pain from that, and then you have surgery. And there's not, but sort of rapid progression to a big scoliosis is incredibly unlikely in any situation.
Good evening. I was diagnosed in '94, and I have the Syringo and the Chiari, but I haven't had surgery. But what bothers me is, I hurt constantly, but how will I know? How will I know that, okay, it's time now? Or do I continue to wait and continue to live as I'm living now? In October, I'll be 75 years old. So do I continue to handle it like I'm handling it now? Or I know you can't help me with that because you don't know my body, but I try to figure this out myself because I pretty much know my body and I listen to it. So when things change, I do know that, okay, I'm feeling different now. I haven't felt this before. Like now I'm having a problem with my eyes. I have problems with my bladder. So I'm thinking, so now things are changing now. So, and I get an MRI every year. But now I'm scheduled for one on the 6th. I'm scheduled for the Chiari on the 16th, And for the Syringo on the 17th, I have a new doctor, which knows nothing, because she was telling me that, because when I did look at the paperwork and I thought, well, hey, you didn't get the orders for the other condition. And she said, well, the Chiari is the same as that. And I said, no, it's not. I said, I've always gotten both. Now I'm getting one on one day and getting another one the next day. And where before, since 1994, I was always given it at one time.
Yeah, I think the decision to have surgery for your Chiari it's a very individual decision.
Yeah.
And to some extent, as you alluded to, it depends on exactly what your scan is showing, how you look anatomically in the inside, what your syrinx looks like, and then very specifically what your symptoms are, what you're experiencing. And with that information, your surgeon can put together
I don't have a surgeon.
a guess about how likely it would be that a good surgery would relieve your symptoms. And then it comes down to your decision. Basically, if a surgeon thinks that he's highly likely to relieve your symptoms, then you can decide if your symptoms are severe enough to justify going through the operation. Right? Both things have to be true. You have to have a situation where, based on your anatomy and based on your symptoms, we think that it is likely that you would get better. So that's one part. And then the other part is your symptoms have to be bothersome enough for you to be able to justify going through that process. And really both things have to be true. Without knowing any of the details of your internal anatomy or symptoms, it's really hard to know whether you're a good candidate or not.
Thank you.
Yes. Well,
Could any of you talk about the mystery of barometric pressure and Chiari or Syringomyelia? Because I've also been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which, just Mr. Comorbidity from Chiari. So, but then again, my 82-year-old mother, who's perfectly healthy, is like, there's a storm coming. So is it more an arthritic kind of thing, a bone kind of thing, or is it specifically because of that comorbidity of Chiari?
We're looking at the neurosurgeon.
Or should I
I
talk
don't-
to a weather person? I don't know.
I don't know. It's hard to say where there's a relationship. That the majority of people that I have dealt with that have the ability to predict the storm's coming or the fog's coming because of a headache don't have Chiaris. So I think that that's a distinct response that some people have. And I'm not certain exactly why, but I don't know that I would think that that's distinctly relating to a Chiari malformation.
Mine is that thing. Must be a doctor.
Are there any other questions?
I am Christian Patrice. Actually, I have a question.
Just yell.
So, I have Chiari and I have Syringomyelia, and I had my decompression back in, I think, 2012. And I don't know, a few years ago, they told me that I had kyphosis, and I've never heard about that. And I never hear about it at the conferences, and I'm here all the time. Is that a kind of a common thing that you hear that other patients get?
Not pure kyphosis. Sort of, a board examiner question for scoliosis with kyphosis is like classic for Chiari.
Right.
That's like the golden patient.
Okay.
Well, not thoracolumbar, generally just even upper thoracic kyphosis, where adolescent idiopathic scoliosis, sideways X-ray, tends to be very, very flat, and Chiari scoliosis tends to be hyperkyphotic. But as we age, and back to the question about spondylosis from the person younger than me, as we age, the discs degenerate and you also become kyphotic. Life is a kyphosing process. It's one of the quotes in our world.
Yeah. Can you say what part of the spinal canal we're talking about?
You know, I don't
Is
remember.
is it your neck? Or?
Well, you know, so when I look at the X-ray, I was like a ruler. It was like so straight. It was crazy.
You don't look like you have kyphosis.
I don't look like I have Chiari. Right?
There is a question up here.
I have, yes. I have a neurogenic bladder with Chiari, spina bifida, and several other illnesses that I have. And my question was, I've had it for the neurogenic bladder. I've had it for about 15 years, and I've had about 12 urodynamics tests already. And how often do you think you should get urodynamics testing? Does the neurogenic bladder change a lot over time?
So did you have a myelomeningocele or a closed?
I had a meningocele.
Meningocele.
Yeah,
So skin was
a
closed over.
I had a meningocele encephalocele apparently and it was removed at 5.5 months.
They,
So it's posterior.
and do you have any kidney issues so the urine isn't moving up the ureters into the kidney?
It's
Like I go.
It's gotten better, but sometimes I can go 20 times a day.
If you have the ability to empty your bladder,
Yeah,
or
I
completely
do
empty your
empty it.
bladder, some people have to sit and push on their bladder. Some people can just do it naturally.
That was at first. Like, I've
And
had
if you're
to
not
push on it.
seeing any hydronephrosis or secondary problems with your ureters or kidneys, then
Right now,
how often do you get testing now?
What was that?
How often are you getting the?
I haven't. They want to do a test now because the last time I was tested was like 13 years ago. So they want to do a test I think I'm going to be tested in October is the next time.
Yeah, I
Because
think
it's
that'd
been-
be wise, and then you can base future tests on the results of that.
Right. Yeah. That's why I was wondering, like, because after this coming test, how often do you think it should it be every like 3 or 4 years, or
It really
does it
depends
depend on the symptoms more
It
so?
depends on how compromised your capacity to empty your bladder is. If you're emptying your bladder normally and you don't have a lot of residual urine after you empty your bladder,
When they tested it, they did a test right in the office, and it emptied 98%.
okay, then you're in a good place, and that might be why they're having longer intervals to test you.